When looking for the king of podcasts, you're at the wrong channel.
Well, excuse me!
Looking for good ideas for life? You're far from good hands.
Hey, bud, what's your problem?
If you think the listener is always right, you're far from the right place.
Out of order! Even in the future, nothing works!
Hosted by a Northeasterner by birth, but a rebel by choice.
Are you threatening me?
If you want a host that floats between love and madness,
and we know the night is always gonna be here anyway. Thinking of you's working up my appetite. Looking forward to a little afternoon delight.
then play on and listen to Crazy Train Radio.
All right, guys, listen to some blues riff and B. Watch me for the changes and try and keep up, okay?
Within the gaming world, there are your general gamers, but then there are those that enjoy the dark underbelly of gaming. If you're one of those that enjoy the dark underbelly of gaming, we certainly got the place to send you. Scorpion Lair Games. That's right, Scorpion Lair Games is the creators of the true crime hit Killers, the card game. Let's not forget they also have Killers Clothing Company, their profiler game, and things like the 5-Minute Murder channel on YouTube. And we certainly can't forget the new book that is certainly a hit, Beyond the Headliners, True Crimes, Myths, and Legends. Make sure you visit Jeff and the Scorpion Lair Games on Facebook and everywhere today.
This is Michael Wall from the Too Opinionated Podcast, and you are listening to Crazy Train Radio.
Hey folks, it's your least favorite host in the podcast world, Croc, Jonathan Steele. And boy, do we have a good one for you today.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, have you ever wanted to talk to someone about all your cool theories on movies, TV shows, comics, etc.? But most people, anytime you start to talk, would splash hot coffee in your face. Well, we got some good news, because there's another outlet I had come across that will allow you to do just that. That home is the award-winning Too Opinionated Podcast. Too Opinionated has interviewed hundreds of some of the best people from some of your favorite quote-unquote geeky shows.
Did I do that?
And they're also all over the place. Everything's based in a Facebook group as well, and a website, MeisterCon, and we'll get into all that. But let's go ahead and welcome the host, Michael Wall.
Hello.
So, Mr. Wall from Too Opinionated Podcast, how the hell are you?
Pretty good today. Pretty good today.
All right. So, for those who may not have heard of your show, which I've seen multiple occasions, whereabouts are you from?
So we're my son and I do this podcast, the Too Opinionated Podcast. We're located in St. Albans, West Virginia. That's just outside of Charleston. So we're like 10 minutes outside the capital.
Okay. So, obvious question, where and why did you come up with the Too Opinionated podcast?
Well, it goes back a little ways, right? So
we're here to tell stories.
Back in the 90s, I was in college, putting myself through school with a couple of comic book stores. Have one down in Huntington, West Virginia, there across from campus, Marshall campus, and then one in Hurricane. And I loved it. It was the best. But, I got married, started having a family, and Marvel in 1996 went bankrupt. So I thought it was over. So I got out of it. It was one thing to support, a college student, another thing to support a family when it was a little murky on what the direction. So I got out of it and always regretted it. My son Brett wasn't born until 3 years after I closed, so he never got to experience the store. And he's a lot like me, very nerdy. We never got to share kind of those, that nerdy pursuit that we wanted to. So jump forward. He's a grown man. He's a children's librarian in our local library. And he comes to me with an idea. He wants to start a podcast. I was just happy he wanted to do something with his dad. So I jumped in with him. Well, he figured out very quickly he didn't like being on camera. And I was the opposite. I discovered, surprisingly, I thought I would hate it. I kind of liked it. But he really enjoys the background stuff. So he does the hard stuff, the editing, the marketing, all that stuff. And then it just leaves me to be the talking head. So that's a kind of a long story, but that's how we got here. We started 2013, we started as a Facebook page and just sharing, memes that we thought were funny. And it kind of grew from that. So then January 2019, we launched the podcast and here we are. We never thought anybody would listen, but we got a few listeners and it just kept getting bigger. And, we moved out of the bedroom we were doing the podcast at the house, got our own studio. And, now this is what we do.
Right on. So, obviously, I don't think most people realize the prep work and everything that goes on pre and post of doing the episodes, because a lot of people, even to this day, still think, oh, you just hit record and that's that.
That's right.
In my head, you do it 3 times: pre-production, episode, post-production, and release.
Yeah.
So would you agree with that? But also, what goes into your prep work?
Well, so with me, it starts with arranging the guests, for the show. When we first got started, probably 90% of the guests that we brought on, we had to solicit, so there was some legwork in that. We developed a pitch deck and kind of refined, how we go about that. But it was heavy on our side of it. As we've went on, that's reversed a little bit. So now we're more 90% of our guests are sent to us as we're a little more well-known. So we don't have to put as much effort into finding guests. However, once those guests are sent to us, then the prep work begins. So, I don't like going into an interview blind. So I try to find out background. Most of who we interview is in the entertainment business. So it's actors, directors. We do musicians and we do book authors, but most of it's within the entertainment business. So I want to make sure I'm familiar with their catalog of work. I want to know whatever they're currently working on. So there may be some some watch time or review time as far as wanting to see some of their works. There's definitely online work as far as just prepping and getting prepared for the interview. I used to have to prep quite a bit just to be kind of, I'd have my questions kind of lined out. I don't really have to do that anymore. It's I've done this enough now. We should hit our 1,000th episode. That's not easy to say, but 1,000th episode this summer. So I've done this enough now where it's reduced some of the prep. So I don't really have to plan what I'm going to ask, because I'm pretty good doing that just on my own. But I definitely got to prep to know the person. I've got a pretty good entertainment database background. I can do some of it, but there's so much out there. You get somebody, especially somebody newer, or maybe somebody that's been doing it for a while that has a big catalog of stuff. I mean, you do a little bit of review. So I think what you're saying is fair. You definitely prep ahead of time. For me, that's probably the most important, I think, is being prepared for the interview. Then you got to do the interview. So there's a little bit of time there. And then post is probably where most of the time is spent, because you're editing and you're adding in clips, and that takes a little bit of time. So, when you add those elements in, it does take more time than I think people expect to have to spend on a podcast. Most people just think you just pick up the mic and go, and you can, but it might be detrimental if you're talking with somebody that you're not familiar with.
Exactly. So I'm not saying this as a pity me or anything like that. I do everything myself because I have issues maybe trusting.
Right. I get that.
Point. And I've done this since June of 12.
Yeah.
And
so you've been at it for a while, and it's your baby. So it's difficult to trust anybody else with it.
So to say, to fully go, like, I got people who can do little bits here and there if I need it, but it's like, I still have that trusting to say, all right, here's an episode where Michael will run with it. You know what I mean? Then just release it. I can't do that.
Yeah, it's tough. I have a hard time. My son and I have been working together now 6 years, and I still have trouble, letting him edit without me just being over top his shoulder. And he does a great job with that. I think it's hard, and I totally get doing it completely on your own. But the drawback there is there's only so much time that you have, so it limits what you can do.
And because that's the thing. Like, I'm at a point now. I think I need help. It would make things easier.
Sure.
For time wise, and luckily you have your boy. But I got to get through that trust thing in certain aspects, but it is what it is. But
I know that's the hardest part, though, because there's only so much. Really, just being honest, there's only so much time, because then the part that we really didn't talk about is, you edit and do that, but then you have to market it. It's not like you just throw it out there and people are automatically listening. You got to put it out there in places they can find and stuff. It takes some time.
Yeah, exactly. And I've gotten some comments about it lately. Nothing horrible.
Yeah.
But it's because this is also self-financed. And I know how to, trust me, without getting public about my situation. I know how to stretch $1 to $1.25 because I have to, if that makes sense, because you have to. So how would you say finances play a part to make you successful? And I'm not saying it's great, because most people realize, or when they hear of podcast, they think, oh, Joe Rogan and this, and everybody's making a fortune of it. But you got to remember, they have a name to them.
That's right. There's very few podcasters making money out there.
Yeah, where you and me, even though two different things, started from the ground up, and we didn't have anything. You learn on the fly and all that stuff.
That's right. Oh yeah, when we started, we weren't using Zoom. We were basically doing interviews with a cell phone just held up to a mic. I mean, it was terrible. It's terrible.
Yeah.
But we didn't
I used
know.
Google Voice.
Oh yeah, I know. We didn't know at the time though.
Yeah.
So it there's a learning curve to it, and for us, the financial part, as our finances got a little bit better, we were able to get a building to put a studio in. That changed everything for us. It really opened up some doors, which sounds kind of silly, but just having that dedicated space, where I can get out of the house, I'm heading to work. It's just a more professional environment, and it gives us some legitimacy, I think, having a physical location that's not at the house type of thing, if that makes sense. So finances have helped in that way. I'm one that I don't know that necessarily throwing a lot of advertising dollars at a podcast is a great way to get your podcast watched. It might be, it might work, but I think that's a difficult path to go through. Yeah. But then what are you left with? You're left with like word of mouth, or like we do a lot on social media, but you got to build up a following to get it to the point that it's worth the time, and that's a time suck. Just posting everything on all the different platforms, that takes some time.
Absolutely. And people, like, I do mine from home, but also I tend to, when I can, take it to places like
you go on location
if I can, if it makes sense. So my thing is, as long as I cover that thing, going or whatever the Zoom cost, and the basics. Like I said, I know how to stretch a dollar.
Well, that's it. Because I say this a lot, but the great thing about podcasts is anybody can do it.
Yeah.
The bad thing about podcasts is that anybody can
do it.
and you can put as little or as much in it as you want, but I'm not sure that just dumping a lot of money into it is a recipe for success.
Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, it might help you out and get you noticed. But content, I think, matters more than, a good market.
You have to have a good product out there.
You got to have a good product, so if you've got a good product, and that's kind of the first step, but then you have to get that product out in front of people. It's hard to get above the noise because there's so many podcasts, and there's so many people that are a lot more famous than we are that are doing it, and they've already got the name recognition, so it's difficult. Plus, we're just a couple dudes when we're podcasting. Some of these people out there, they've got like millions of followers in a influencer capacity, and they can bring all those followers to a podcast. So it's a little easier for some, but for most of us, we're just out there grinding, and out there trying to make something happen. And you take advantage when you get opportunities,
Exactly. And that's the thing. I always try to make my own opportunity, if that makes sense.
You have to. That nobody's going to come if you just waiting. You're going to be waiting a long time.
Yeah. The front door is not being caved in.
That's right.
So, show-wise, would you say you like to focus on movies more, comics, TV? Is there a preference you enjoy doing?
Well, for me, my favorite episodes are the ones where it's just me and Brett talking about whatever nerdy topic, we want to talk about for the week. We did one on the Elimination Chamber last week, so it was just the two of us.
We do watch-alongs with that kind of thing, so yeah.
That's right, yeah, and I love that the best. But for the interview side, those celebrities that I kind of grew up idolizing, those are the ones that I absolutely love. So it'd be like, somebody from an old Star Trek, or like I got to talk with, Sam Jones, that was Flash Gordon, or Mark Singer, that was the Beastmaster. Some of those guys that they were kind of big when I was younger. I love talking with them, but it's fun talking with people that I don't know anything about too. I like learning about people, and I love watching shows that I've interviewed somebody that's on that show. So I love to do that too. So if there's a popular show, I always try to get just somebody from the cast.
Yeah.
Just because I like the show.
And it's funny, and I caught grief last night. Last night we did a watch party of Wicket, and most of my audience, I would say, is like a lot of horror, a lot of sports, etc. But it's one of those pinch me moments, let's say, because even though we were doing something outside the box there for us, the one guest is like, who's huge into like 80s slashers and 80s horrors and all that stuff, goes, "Hey, you see this picture? Show me of it, Linnea Quigley, let's say." I go, "Well, it's funny. Linnea actually literally just texted me as we started this movie." Well, she always took, I mean, so it's like there's certain people that I grew up watching, and I got to pinch myself. Wait, we're going, it's become more than just guests.
Yeah, I mean, it's just fun.
Like,
at that point, it's just a good time for me. I'm a fan first. So when I get to talk to people I'm a fan of, I really enjoy it. And we did we do the convention thing where we'll go and cover a convention and get the press passes and interview people. We love doing that. We do a lot of live stuff, and we enjoy that. But just at a base level, the ones where it's just me and Brett, I love those the most, because that was the whole reason to start the podcast, was because we wanted to hang out together. So
there you go.
Yeah.
But like, it's funny when there's one particular, I'm trying to think, Beastmaster, was that a separate movie? I can't think off the top of my head. I'm coming off 2 other episodes.
Yeah, Beastmaster was it was there was actually 3 of those movies. Okay, so it's about the guy, he's kind of a Tarzan like guy, but he could talk with the animals or communicate with the animals, and he's kind of living out there in the jungle, and then shenanigans ensue.
Yeah, well, it's funny, I say that because I was thinking of, when you first said it, Beastman from Masters of the Universe.
Oh yeah, of course.
That's where my head was. And I speak to Blade from that movie all the time. If you're familiar with Anthony Galonges. Of course. And because it's back to back, it was He-Man, then Roadhouse, which he was in. So it's funny. Me and him, like, I try not to text too late, but it's okay because he's on the West Coast, so I can like send a message at like midnight here. It's only 9 there.
Yeah.
And I'll come up with something. Hey, what about this? Or can you fill me in on this? Like Circle of Iron, or give me this, or what I mean, like something obscure or off the rails per se.
Yeah.
That most people wouldn't bring up. He goes, well, and he'll give me 3 pages of a text answer. Does that answer your chance? Does that answer your question, pal? Yeah.
Well, I've always said that's one of the tricks that I do. If I have somebody on the show, I always try to find something kind of obscure that they've done that they never get asked about, because that gives you something to ask about that maybe catches them a little off guard, but in a good way, if you know what I mean.
Oh, exactly. And it's funny, and I could say this publicly. I'll probably get a phone call for saying this anyway, since I brought Anthony up. Screw it. Partner, what are you doing? Why are you telling that story? It wasn't a big deal. No, but so I was out at the ranch because he does stunts, taught people bull whips and all kinds of things, sword fighting, martial arts, in 53 years of doing what he does, and still looks great.
Amazing.
So phone ring. He gave me a horseshoe when I was out at the ranch a couple years ago, and from one of his stunt horses that he works with and trains.
Nice.
So, gave me a bull lesson, the whole bit. So I was leaving to fly home that night because I was doing a red eye, and well, anyway, a couple of years goes by, and obviously we still kept in contact. About 8 months ago, phone rings, and it's ADL. I go, what's up? He goes, hey, partner, I need everybody's partner. Hey, partner, I need your mailing address. Okay, I'll text it to you, but knowing him, it's like, okay, what am I getting into? Everything good? This ain't a what do you call it? Like a restraining order you haven't sent,
right?
No. I'm going to send you a couple horseshoes for your niece and nephew. Okay, cool. And I'll have to get a picture of it for you later, but I got, he sent me a couple from the horses and all. It was kind of cool. So it's experiences like that and the relationships you build.
That's it. Yeah. I mean, I've legit made friends from interviewing people on this podcast. There's people now there's people that, there's actors in LA and New York that I'll go out there to see them in things. If they're in a play or something, I'll go out there and see them in. I never would have met them if it wasn't, through the podcast. So crazy. And we contact, if I contact somebody, I normally go through their agent, publicist, manager, something like that. But when we first started, I was just contacting people, on Messenger and on Facebook and stuff. And so you can imagine how unsuccessful that was, but it still got us started. I was still able to find a few people that would come on and talk to us, and it snowballed from there. Eventually, I figured out better ways to get a hold of guests, and we started doing that. But when we first started out, it was just me sending random messages to people.
Well, let me put this out there, and I found this works for me as well too. Because you get to a certain point of success, I guess you can say. It might not be financially but you have people that tune in. There's
that's right. Yeah,
other,
you get some
other types of success. Yeah. But have you ever found that you get good word of mouth from talent? Let's say Adam Marcus from Jason Goes to Hell, right? The director. Yeah. Just for Adam, I love you. I'm not shooting negative of you, but like say you talk with Adam, but then you get word of mouth that, hey, I'd like to speak to an Aaron Gray. I'd like to speak to this one or that one. And there might be ties to them that Adam might give you a rub per se. Hey, talk to these guys. They're okay.
Yeah.
Do you get that a lot?
I get that a lot, actually. Yeah. Word of mouth is one of the biggest ways we get people on the show. And sometimes, I'll get spouses, I'll get, significant others, and I'll have them, maybe they're both actors. I'll have one on, they have a good time. So I usually don't ask, but at some point it kind of comes up, and then I'll get the spouse on at some point. I got to be good friends with some of the cast from Resident Alien. And because of the friendships I have with a couple of them, I was able to put together a panel and watch, and it had the whole cast on there. And, the majority would tell you they did it because of their relationship with the other cast members that I'm friends with. So it was a favor to them, or I never would have got that put together. And that happens a lot. You get somebody, they had a good experience, so they'll pass us on. Or I get a lot of first time they've ever done a podcast. So it might be somebody brand new, new actor, or it may be somebody that's older and they've never done that. And people are pretty comfortable with how we handle those situations. So we get a lot of those sent to us. And I love those. Those are fun because they're nervous. So it makes you not nervous, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Somebody got to be steering the boat.
That's right. That's exactly right.
It's funny. Right. I won't say who. I'll put it this way. I got to be coy about this.
Okay.
Because I kind of had a situation like that recently, as far as word of mouth,
Yeah.
because I reached out to a publicist I know, and well, not know, but have dealt with before.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm looking at speaking with X. Do you think we can put something together? And she said, I'm not sure, but would you mind speaking with Y?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and they might not be at the same level per se. All right.
It's usually not. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
usually not.
yeah. So it's like, and of course, people look at me like I'm crazy, and they haven't done a lot of shows, like you said. I'm like, my answer is usually yes, because A, that's more of a challenge. What can I get and make it as good as possible? But B, I can go back to said agent or whatever, or publicist or whatever. Hey, I did do X, Y, and Z. Does that help me move up the food chain to do A, B, and C? You get what I'm laying down there?
That's our philosophy all the time. We never say no, unless it's just something where we just couldn't do it. But if we can say yes, we say yes, and that's the whole reasoning. Is just because we're trying to get that bigger fish, so we're just developing those relationships. And like for us, we haven't quite cracked that A-list actor range yet. But
I don't
I'm
think I
definitely
have.
working.
Depends on your opinion.
What's that?
I said, I don't think I have either, but it all depends on what you're a fan of, too.
Well, that's right. That's exactly right. But there's a level there that even though I'm dealing with those agents or publicists, I haven't cracked that top level of what they consider their top level. So I'm still working on that. But I'm getting a lot higher up that kind of ladder than I did 6 years ago. It just takes time. It takes time for them to realize that you're serious enough that they might want to fool with you, because they're not going to want to just put their people on somebody that's going to be done podcasting in 2 weeks.
Yeah, exactly.
They want to get people that are serious and that are going to be doing this, because then those episodes tend to get watched a little bit, and it might help them a little bit.
And I'll put this out there. It took me, I had a yes say in 2016 for Jesse Ventura.
Yeah. I
Ventura.
saw that you got to talk with him finally.
Yeah, but it was yes in 2016, but the agent kind of went MIA on me.
I've had
so
that.
It took me until last September, August or September, but we finally made it happen because his son took the reins.
Yeah.
So, it's one of those.
If you're persistent, sometimes I've still got.
You have to be.
My, my what do you call it? The bucket list of people I'd like to interview that I've been chasing for years, and some of them I've been told no, multiple times. But I kind of like if I get no answer, that's one thing. I'm like, okay, I'm getting nowhere. But then if like you don't answer me for the first 5 or 6 times, but then the 7th time you send me just it's a no, to me that's progress. Because now I've got you've answered me. So then we've established this communication. So now when I go back to you, at least you know who I am. And then maybe that'll help me, and eventually maybe that leads to something. That's, you never know, but occasionally it does work out.
Who would you say would be on that bucket list of folks I would like to talk to before it's all said and done?
Well, number one on my list was William Shatner, and I got to moderate for him on stage, so that took care of that one. For I've got a couple. I'm gonna give you a couple, and they might surprise you because they're not the biggest names you'd ever heard, but you'll know them. Number one is probably Jennifer Garner. We've been chasing her because she's from here. She's from right where we're doing the podcast. So that's probably number one. For me, I've always wanted to talk with Erin Gray. You mentioned her earlier. She's been on my bucket. I've been a fan of her since Buck Rogers. So she's definitely on that list. someone like a Patrick Stewart, love to talk with him. I've always been this one. Nobody ever says her name, but I've always been a Eliza Dushku fan. So just for me, I would like to speak with her. So it's people like that. It's some of them are really famous. Like, yeah, I'm sure everybody want to talk to them. Some of them not as famous, but they're kind of special to me. And I've come close on Aaron Gray a few times, but never been able to work it out.
Yep. I've been working on that and working at a Contact for a little while, especially with the Heart of Darkness DVD or documentary coming out. Yeah. I think that will help.
I'm hoping.
Yes. Yeah. Adam, make it happen, buddy.
That's right.
No, I'll throw this out there in the universe publicly. Heather Langenkamp for me would be would be a biggie on a personal level. So
why is that? Why are you a fan?
Well, I was probably about 3 or so getting into Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah.
And of course that would have been 87-ish and whatnot. So she was like one of those first leading ladies for me anyway that I was like, you know what I mean? If that makes sense. But then there's some personal reasons because we've had similar stories directly or indirectly.
Yeah.
That I think would be, just cosmically or whatever.
Be a good conversation starter.
Exactly.
Anyway. Yeah.
I think would make it.
Well, I tried to get her. She was on Midnight Club.
Yes, through Netflix.
And I tried to get her when I saw her on there. I was like, oh, I'm gonna try to get her, but I was unsuccessful and just never circled back. That'd be a good one. That'd be a good get. Yeah. I bet she's a good interview.
Yeah, because that makes it even more enticing because it's not like she's on every Dick and Jane show.
That's right.
I'm not knocking Dick and Jane. We love you, love the book, but you know what I mean. She's not.
Yeah, I think she'd be a good guest. I tend to like some of those older actors. Some of those ones that were popular in the 70s, 80s, 90s, because they're easier to get. They were at the time maybe at the top of their profession, but they're just kind of aged out a little bit. But I love doing those because those are the ones I connect with.
Exactly.
Those are the ones I was a fan of when I was a kid, and those are your strongest connections, I think.
Absolutely. And so as we are early March of 2025, there's still a long way to go here. Do you have any particular goals of people you'd like to have on this year?
Well, I'm pushing hard for Jennifer for our thousands. Number 1,000. That's who we're going for. But being honest, I tried for it 900, 800. I'm pretty sure 500.
Yeah.
So I've been trying for a while.
How about this then? How about, is there places you'd like to go with the show?
Well, yeah. So we do have some planned events this year. So we'll be in LA at some of the conventions out there. We'll be in New York several times. But the big one I think that we're kind of targeting is we're doing a awards ceremony in at the end of the year in Vancouver. So it's Hollywood North.
I know those guys. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm working. I'm going to go up there and work with them either right at the end of the year or at the beginning of 26. But that's one we're definitely looking forward to. And then we've got a couple of local conventions coming up that we'll be helping to get guests for and set that stuff up. But just as far as the podcast goes, it's kind of just business as usual. I got on my first press junket. So, it's been 6 years, but I finally got on a press junket. I'm a big Wheel of Time fan. Got on that junket and got the new season sent to me early so we could review it. Got some set up some cast interviews. So I definitely want to lean more into that, but it took a little while to figure out. It's a different it's a different route going through the network or the company instead of like a representative. It's a little tougher to get in there. But now that I've gotten into one of them, it should be a little bit easier, and I'd like to set those up. The ultimate goal would be to be in some of those Zoom rooms where they're just bringing a whole cast through. Every few minutes they bring a different person through. And I think we'll get a chance to do some of those this year. So we got some stuff that we're planning.
And before I have you promote and all the links and stuff, final question for you. And it's funny when I tell this.
Yeah.
And I'll throw myself under the bus here. And maybe you do, maybe you don't. Because obviously there are certain ways to handle yourself, as you know, in doing what we do. But also, I have no problem telling people to go, like, when they give you the runaround, let's say there's some agents and things like that or PR people that will give you the runaround and stuff. Yeah, like string you along and all that fun.
Yeah.
So, doing a song and dance that my Northeast bluntness will come out and finally go, you know what? Off. Because I put my cards on the table saying, here's what it is, what we like to do. I have this much credibility. I didn't just start yesterday, et cetera, et cetera. Because obviously you said you did some digging on my show, which is scary.
Oh, yeah.
But
it was all good. It was all good. No.
But you know what I'm saying? It's like,
yeah.
Being a Philly guy, I like to lay my cards on the table.
That's right.
And deal with people and just be upfront and honest. And we can't do something. I get it. But do you have that issue with doing your thing? Because, I know how to play the game, and we'll play the game if I need to. But it gets to a certain point where I go, fuck this shit. Just be straight up. Just be straight with me. Just be straight with me.
I absolutely have had those moments. And, I've tried different tactics. I'll go back and be like, hey, I get it. You don't know me. Maybe this isn't the right person, or you think that, we're not ready for this opportunity yet. But maybe you've got somebody else that we could talk to and kind of show you what we can do and stuff. And I've tried that way. Sometimes that works. Sometimes it doesn't. Most of the time, if I kind of keep hitting that wall, I just move on.
Yeah.
I'm not going to put my energy somewhere that it's not wanted. But now I will say, I'll put this out there for anybody that's in that line of work, publicist, manager, agent, you've got an obligation to bring those offers to your person. Now, I'm not meaning you can't be a gatekeeper and you can't weed out the nonsense. You should do that. But legitimate offers, you should be bringing those, and at a minimum, be sending a reply saying, this isn't right for us right now, or we can't do this right now. That's at a minimum. You should be sending that out.
And I'm cool with that.
I get it. Podcasts are newer. They're not as well respected as a lot of the media yet. But this is the future. This is where we're going. So if you're not working with podcasts yet, you're going to be at some point.
Yeah.
So why alienate a bunch of them?
Yeah. And like I said, I get, hey, we can't do business. We can't do business. I'm cool with that.
But just tell me.
Yeah, just be upfront.
I'll stop wasting both our times.
Exactly. All right. So obviously I recently joined the group and stuff, but where can people find everything, whether it's the group, the podcast, all that fun stuff?
Well, yeah. So for us, we operate under the name of MeisterCon for our social media, right? So MeisterCon, there's a story there. I'm a big Star Trek fan, so Star Trek II, Wrath of Khan. You got Kirk back there yelling Khan. So that's where the Khan came from. Santa Claus Comes to Town was my favorite Christmas special growing up. So you have Burger Meister Burger. So I got MeisterCon. It's just a unique, fun name that meant something to us, but nobody else. Yeah. But you can find us everywhere under MeisterCon. Our website is meistercon.com, and you can find all of our episodes, audio and video versions on there. And if we're doing anything, on location or going to to do something remotely, it'll be on the website. So meistercon.com. YouTube channel is MeisterCon Pod. And please subscribe. You know how that goes.
Yes.
Constantly chasing subscribers. And I hate to do it, but it does help us sometimes to get, some people worry about that stuff. So it does help us sometimes. But yeah, if you put in MeisterCon anywhere, it's going to bring us up. Or if you put in the Too Opinionated Podcast, that'll bring us up. Yeah.
Michael, thank you so much, sir.
Hey, I really enjoyed this, man. I hope we can get together again. We'll have to do a tag team interview at some point.
There you go. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. It's been fun.
Hey there, it's Alan Troutman, Tarman from Return of the Living Dead. And if there's anybody you should listen to, it's me, about listening to Crazy Train Radio. Go do it. Go away. Do it now.